Okay, time for a WebBot hit video. I've had several requests. Jason it, man, where you been on the flooding, man? It's a WebBot hit, man. Why don't you do a video on that? Yes, it is. I have to say you're right. So, for my peeps who keep emailing me, do a video, man. It's a hit. You got it. Time for a WebBot hit video. I'm going to read you the November WebBot Alta report. I also want you to remember, around that time frame, and even previously, we're talking about flooding from the other reports, WebBot reports. September, October, Cliff, I've been talking about it too. Flooding. We then have this hurricane come that went across Mexico, right up towards the United States into Texas, causing a lot of flooding. Right before, I believe it was right before that happened, Bakersfield, California, flash flood, mudslide. Well, not necessarily a mudslide, but I mean it was muddy for sure. But massive water, knocking cars off the highway, bumping into each other. I did the video on it, if you guys remember that. So keep that in mind. That was already a WebBot hit. But in case you need some bonus WebBot hit, and because the word flooding was in the November and December report, and we have this incredible amount of flooding in the U.S., Mississippi area, etc., it's time to do this video. So I'm going to start by reading just a piece of the word, anything that has the word flood or flooding in it. I'm searching through this WebBot document, November. Terra entity. Yet more catastrophic flooding showing for both the Caribbean region and the east coast of North America. The data sets within the shorter term values are indicating a very cold winter across much of North America, even down into the southern borders. The level of cold is described as creating frozen rain towers that will be ice down 80 feet. Other descriptors are for dueling snowstorms, in which a major snowstorm in the northwest is competing for moisture with another storm on the east coast that spreads deep inland and sucks moisture from three seas or oceans at once. This is still, we're about to be in January, February, right? So really winter's coming. So I'd be curious to see what happens in that respect with the ice stuff as we get past February as far as the rest of the country. I'm in Florida. Ain't happening here in Florida. So the next word for flooding. Model space continues to accrue data for more flooding and for more types, for more new types of flooding and more flooding in new places not known in the past for flooding. Some of these new flooding types are also to be accompanied by gases or envelopes that will be bobbing about the landscape, presumably due to either volcanic or other subterranean disturbances. In some cases, the gas envelopes are described as visible. These are described as shutting down traffic and emptying areas, buildings as they float over. The idea from the data sets is that these will be either carbon dioxide or methane laced to such a degree as to cause suffocation, in some cases permanent. The data sets that language will arise to the effect of bad air bites or don't bite the bad air. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm saying to myself, oh my God, how did we all miss this? How did we all miss this? This is something else. This is a double WebBot hit. Double WebBot hit. So now I will change the title of this video, since I haven't uploaded it yet, to not just WebBot hit flooding, double WebBot hit. Do you recall, I just talked about this recently, we had the BP oil spill and the radiation, Fukushima and all this crap, and I said now we got a new one to deal with, a gas well. Wasn't that also in California? Out of control, spewing massive amounts of methane. They had to evacuate the whole area. The company had to pay all this a few thousand people, relocated. People are smelling it. They're breathing it in. They're getting headaches. They were getting sick. Hold on a second. Because, here it is, And it's, it's interesting. So this is from the November Alta report. Now, in all fairness, well, let me keep reading for a second because I still got more on flooding. Some of the new sets within the flooding descriptor sets include language going to the idea of a storm surge that is so large and so sustained as to initiate a backwash or surge back effect as massive amounts of water flows back to the ocean as the storm forces pass by. These new backwash effect storms are showing us causing massive damage that will also actually suck buildings back into the beach sands. The flooding sets continue to accrue data for new types of flooding not normally seen. These are forecast to include long run out slides of mud and material that will be all ground down into a cement-like paste, which is further described as flowing across a major highway section such that the area is cemented over as a valley conducts the sloshing or mountain of paste downhill. In many of the flooding sets, we are now seeing that permanent damage will result. In some cases, removing local farms and other necessary infrastructure such as telephone service and internet connections by being buried or washed away. Just trying to scroll through there. Anything else? So that's enough for that one. But what I was going to say is the flooding or the gas leak, California. I want to see real quick when this gas leak actually started, because if this is the very beginning of November that this report came out, Webbot report. Hold on. So on October 23rd, just a week before this report came out, the Southern California Gas Company discovered a leak in its natural gas storage facility in Porter Ranch, a neighborhood about 25 miles northwest from downtown Los Angeles. Engineers don't know what caused it, but believe that a gas well failed, blah, 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 blah. The way the Webbot works is it has to collect data for an extended period of time. So if this is the first news story that came out on October 23rd, and there's only 7 days left of the month, and he's about to release the report in a matter of days, there's not a chance in hell that this news story was enough to make his Webbot report say what it did about this gas, bad air and stuff. Number one, no one knew how bad it was yet, so it wasn't this major breaking news story. But then it became that as time went on, and then they started evacuating people. So the Webbot report had already been created at that point. That's the point I'm making. So I wanted to be fair and say, well, maybe by chance this gas leak happened way earlier than the Webbot report was released, and it did pick up on the news language and language all over the internet talking about it. That would make sense. But as close as that is, there's no way. And again, when it first happened, it wasn't like this big breaking news and people immediately evacuated yet. There was some time had went by, and people were breathing it in, and they realized, okay, we can't stay here, and the gas company said, all right, well, we're going to pay for them to be relocated. So I'm going to now, which I'll start to read the December report, so hang on. I'll open that one. It's short as far as that one's concerned. And Cliff actually sent me that one. There it is. Search for flooding. And now this is under the Euro POP or Europe POP, not America. So you may say, well, it doesn't really apply. But I'm telling you, the November one just smashed it out of the ballpark. So those of you in Europe, be prepared for some flooding as well. But it says here, instances, and even though it's on a Euro POP, it actually talks about the global POP entity is mixed in here. So technically that would include America. But instances of splash as a descriptor set are appearing throughout the global POP, Space Ghost Farts, and Markets entity. This language is accompanied in many sets by upwelling and seeping to flooding and increeping tidal flooding. In some of these sets, the language is clearly referencing water-based events. However, we are also getting numerous instances of metaphoric use of the Same sets being applied to politics and finance. So that's the December report. In other sets, the refugee flood or invasion is showing as triggering the rise of territorial political parties that will be bringing the core peoples to political power in several countries. Now, this is something, again, I'm looking for the word flood. That's not the kind of flood we were looking for. So that's it for the December report. But the November report talked about it. The one before that talked about it. The one before that talked about it. So now we're going to talk about Missouri ravaged by historic flooding as disaster after disaster continues to hit America. But for one split second, my wife brought me a bowl of cereal, so I'm going to pause this video and eat it. Okay, so here we go with this. And it's from Silver Doctor's covering this, but I've read this on all over the place, any news site you can think of. Nobody that is living has ever seen anything like this, end quote. What did the What About report just say about places that flood that never seen before and never... Interesting comment. This article is posted December 31st, 2015. Webbot report I just read you, the main one, November, very beginning of November, it was released. And used the language that I read you. From Michael Snyder, the Economic Collapse blog. Why does this keep happening to America? Since the month of September, the United States has been absolutely pummeled by a devastating series of disasters. And this most recent one may be the worst of all. And I find that comment interesting because that's around the same time the Webbot really started getting into the, hey, more flooding, a lot more flooding, hey, weather, extreme weather, wow, even more flooding. September, October, November, now December. It just keeps coming up in the Webbot report. So it says, right now, communities all over the Mississippi, Missouri, and Arkansas rivers are dealing with historic flooding. In Missouri, it is being said that nobody, quote, that is living has ever seen anything like this, end quote. That phrase right there is exactly what the Webbot's talking about. And it is being projected that rivers could reach levels not seen since the Great Flood of 1993. Portions of Interstate 44 have been totally shut down. What was that thing about interstates being... I just read you in the Webbot. Something about interstates, roads being blocked off, and water flooding them, and mud, and... that's interesting. Portions of Interstate 44 have been totally shut down, and thousands of people have either already been evacuated from their homes or are preparing to evacuate. It would be difficult to overstate the utter devastation that we are witnessing. Personally, I have some very good friends in the southern Missouri area, and I would definitely be keeping them in my prayers. I was going to comment, not going to comment. The governor of Missouri, Jay Nixon, is warning people to be very careful. Thanks, Governor. Excellent advice. Appreciate that. 13 people have already been killed by the flooding. And Nixon says the waters are going, quote, places they've never been before, end quote. Gosh, that Webbot is really sounding pretty interesting right about now. How could it use such words and phrases 2 months in advance of an event that hasn't happened yet? Incredible. And people wonder why I pay attention to this crazy, outlandish Webbot report. That's right there's a good reason. 13 people in Missouri have died in floods caused by severe storms over the weekend, and although the rain has moved on, swollen rivers are still rising and won't crest for days, Governor Jay Nixon said. It's very clear that Missouri is in the midst of a very historic and dangerous flooding event, he told reporters Tuesday. The amount of rain we've received in some places is in excess of a foot, and it's caused river levels to not only rise rapidly, but to go places they've never been before. I thought that was Star Trek in the Enterprise, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Now rivers can do that too? What the... Jeez. What is this world coming to? A state of emergency has declared in Missouri on Monday, or was declared on Monday, And yesterday, Governor Nixon activated the National Guard, but the river is still rising and the worst is yet to come. So, Governor Nixon, I'm going to hope that you took some notes from New Orleans when the police were told to go around and take any weapons from any person and go inside houses without warrants. And again, if found anybody in there, take their weapons. I'm going to hope that you don't do that this time. It is being... hold on. Man, had to clear that throat out. It is being reported that the Mississippi River is now a mile wide in some places, and there are debris piles that are up to 2 stories tall. Authorities are projecting that the flooding along some areas of the river will match or break all-time records that were set in 1993. In some parts of the Missouri, how about in some parts of Missouri, rivers are expected to crest as high as they did during the devastating flood of 1993, which is also known as the Great Flood, Nixon said. The National Weather Service predicted that the Mississippi River at Chester, Illinois, would crest at 49.7 feet Friday, matching the 1993 record, the governor's office said. The Mississippi at the Thebes was expected to crest Saturday at a record-breaking 47.5. So, you know, there's a little bit more, but I mean, I don't need to continue. How many times have I said, you know, the whole 2012 thing, and the Mayan calendar, devastation, earth changes, came and went, oh, everything's fine. And I said, no, hold on. Whoa. I don't think everything's fine. Because everything that I can see, I'm paying attention to the earthquakes, the magnitudes, how frequently they're happening, volcanic activity. We've had numerous volcanoes going off over the last several years, unbelievable amounts. I would venture and say record-breaking amounts of actual eruptions, as well as them becoming quite active, if not yet erupting either. Or, you know, if not erupting yet, the activity is very high. We're having these floods and these crazy storms and these weird temperature swings and all this stuff. And I've said the whole time, guys, just because 2012 came and went, them old Mayans, oh, they got it wrong, everything's fine. It ain't fine. And I said everything is cyclical, everything. The sun coming up and down every day, the planet spinning, you going to sleep, waking up, going to work, you planting a seed, the seed grows into a flower, the flower does its thing, dies, drops off more seeds on its way down, and life repeats, right? Everything's a cycle. And within every cycle, there's a climax. There's always a peak, right? And then goes back down, so the cycle could continue. So if I'm looking at all this stuff, and it ain't getting any better, it's not even, okay, it's kind of subsiding. No, it's just getting worse. What does that tell us? It hasn't peaked yet. The 2012 thing, or what maybe some people were expecting, hasn't happened yet. You might argue, well, actually, yeah, it did, and it is, and it's continuing, and it has happened for several years, and it's continuing to do so. And I would agree, because that's exactly what the information publicly available for anybody says. That's exactly what it says. And then we have the earthquakes. How many devastating earthquakes have there been in the last several years? Quite a few. Tsunamis that we've never seen, like the one in 2011. We've never seen anything like that. We have never seen anything like that. Yes, it was 2011. Oh, 2012 was the next year. Oh my God. No. Doesn't matter. Things have not gotten any better. So, as long as I'm reading that Webot report and it's confirming my thoughts, yep, more flooding, more problems, more this, yep. I ain't got any reason to believe it's going to subside. So, it's one of those reasons where someone who may have lived in that area, oh, I've been living here all my life, and, you know, man, you're kind of close to that river, aren't you ever concerned? It happened once in 93. Did it devastate that area? Well, yeah. But it was like a once in a, million year thing. So you're comfortable living there. Even though it happened just as early as 93. Yeah. Okay. Well, have at it. And then this happens. And they're probably scratching their... But I could have sworn 2012 done came and went. Yep. But the data, readily available for anyone who wants to go take a few minutes and read about it, or an hour or two if you want to really read about it, says no, things are getting worse in the Terra entity from Webotland, or the Terra, Terra Earth, if you will, period, during this time frame we're talking about, which is like last several years and now, and what I foresee is coming and continuing into the future. And I'm thinking about remember the Prime Minister of France. We have exactly 500 days till climate chaos ensues. There's been some climate chaos very recently, and as this article says, since September, it's been noticeably in your face. Yep. So, still makes you wonder how that guy would know 400 something days, 500 days, whatever it was, in advance, that around this day we're going to have climate chaos. Of course, some of us were thinking, well, they're just trying to push the New World Order agenda, Agenda 21, all that crap. So they were having their meeting right around that exact time frame with the UN, and the Pope comes out and all that, and we have this big climate summit in Paris. So maybe he was just using that to say, oh, well, perfectly timed in exactly 500 days, we're going to start seeing, climate chaos, and we have to deal with it. And then right after that, 500 days, is when they're having their meeting in France, Paris, France, about somehow trying to come together as countries and let's pollute less and use less, greenhouse gases and whatnot. And nobody signed any kind of agreement. It was a verbal, like, yeah, we'll work on that. What happens if we don't? Nothing. Interesting. So, anyways, I'll stop it here. Double WebBot hit. Take care.